In the heart of an empire built on fear, a defiant prisoner is thrown into the dragon pits, doomed to be nothing more than food. But when the beasts bow instead of bite, a secret buried for thousands of years begins to awaken. One that could shatter the emperor's power and light the dawn of a new age. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The grand throne room of Emperor Caldros shimmered with cold light from floating crystals above. Every corner of the vast chamber carried the weight of silence, broken only by the soft scrape of armored boots against the polished black stone floor. Guards dragged a young woman into the room, her wrists bound in heavy chains that rattled with each step. Her name was Mara, a miner turned rebel, and though her clothes were torn and her face carried bruises, her eyes burned with a stubborn fire. Emperor Caldros leaned forward on his throne of crystal and steel, a seat carved to remind all who entered that power was eternal and unquestionable. Tall, broad, and cloaked in robes that shimmered like liquid silver, his very presence demanded obedience. Yet Mara did not bow. Even as guards shoved her down, she forced herself upright, her gaze locked on the ruler who had enslaved countless worlds. A hush fell over the gathered nobles, all waiting for the emperor's judgment. Caldros studied her like a man amused by a curious insect. His smile was thin, his voice calm, yet edged with cruelty. So this is the rebel who destroyed my supply lines and freed hundreds of workers. You do not look like much. Mara's reply was steady, though her lips trembled from exhaustion. And you look exactly as I imagined. A man who hides behind soldiers and chains. A guard struck her across the back with the butt of his spear, but she barely flinched. A ripple of surprise passed through the Kala. Caldros laughed, the sound echoing like glass breaking. They said humans were bold. It seems they were right. He rose from the throne, each step deliberate as he descended the stairs toward her. Towering above, he circled her slowly, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Do you know what happens to those who defy me? Mara's tone was sharp, something unoriginal, no doubt. You repeat the same cruelty until even your people grow tired of it. The nobles gasped at her words, but Caldros only narrowed his silver eyes. He leaned closer, his breath cold as frost. Then hear my wager. You will be thrown into the dragon pits beneath this palace. My beasts have feasted on warriors stronger than you. By dawn, you will be nothing but a memory. You are just food for my dragons. Laughter erupted from the nobles, rising high into the vaulted chamber. Murals of conquest on the ceiling seemed to echo the sound, as though history itself mocked her. Yet Mara's expression did not change. Her voice was calm, steady as stone. If that is your most creative idea, then I see why your empire is cracking. The emperor's smile faded. He snapped his fingers, and the guards dragged her toward the side doors. But as they pulled her away, Mara caught sight of something unexpected. Among the nobles stood a woman with pale blue skin and golden eyes, dressed in silks that shimmered faintly. Unlike the others, she did not laugh. Her gaze held worry, almost sorrow, before she quickly looked away. Mara carried that flicker of concern in her mind as the heavy doors closed behind her. The corridors beneath the throne room twisted downward, each step echoing in the narrow passage. The air grew cooler, damp with the scent of stone and iron. Torches flickered, shadows stretching along the walls as the guards marched her deeper into the earth. At last, they reached the gates of the dragon pits, carved into the mountain itself. The iron doors loomed high, reinforced with symbols of power. One guard pressed a sequence of runes, and the doors groaned open to reveal a cavern lit by glowing fungi that pulsed faintly in the dark. From within came the sound of hissing breaths and low rumbles that shook the ground. Mara was shoved into a holding cell with one transparent wall, a force field shimmering faintly to keep her contained. Through it, she could see them. 5 dragons, vast and serpentine, their scales shifting colors like molten gems, coiled around rocks and pools of steaming liquid. Each was the size of a transport ship, their golden eyes reflecting light like molten fire. They seemed half asleep, their massive bodies rising and falling with slow breaths. Yet Mara felt the weight of their awareness. The guards laughed among themselves, confident she would not last until dawn. Then they left her alone, their footsteps fading into silence. Mara pressed her back against the cold stone wall. Though fear curled at the edges of her mind, she whispered to herself, steadying her resolve. If they think I am only food, they are wrong. And so began the wager of the throne room, a test of survival, where defiance would meet destiny, and where chains would either break her or forge her into something greater. Night in the dragon pits did not feel like night at all. The cavern stretched endlessly beneath the palace, its walls glowing faintly with patches of blue fungi that pulsed like stars trapped under stone. The silence was broken only by the steady drip of water and the deep, heavy breathing of the dragons coiled in the shadows. Mara sat with her back against the cold wall of her cell. Her wrists ached from the heavy cuffs, but her mind refused to rest. Every sound echoed, carrying weight and meaning, as if the mountain itself listened. She thought of the Emperor's words, of the laughter in the throne room. She had been branded as nothing more than food. Yet something inside her whispered otherwise. Beyond the shimmering force field, one dragon stirred. Its scales shifted from deep black to a shimmer of midnight blue, each movement catching the faint glow of the fungi. Its golden eyes fixed on Mara, unblinking and sharp. For a long moment, they stared at each other, neither moving. Mara broke the silence with a whisper. "You can understand me, can't you?" To her surprise, the dragon tilted its head, bird-like, before pressing a claw gently against the barrier. The force field rippled with a soft hum, but held firm. Mara leaned forward, her voice quiet but steady. "They think you're beasts. They think you're weapons. But I don't believe that." The dragon blinked slowly, a gesture that felt less like indifference and more like acknowledgement. Then it turned, its massive body slipping back into the shadows, leaving Mara with a single thought burning in her chest. The Emperor had underestimated them both. Hours passed. Mara drifted between restless dreams and sharp awakenings, her mind circling the same truth. The dragons were not mindless creatures. There was intelligence in their eyes, an echo of something ancient and forgotten. Her memories carry her back to the beginning of her fight. Once, she had been just another worker for the Empire's mining projects. She had followed orders until she saw the truth. Prisoners and laborers treated as expendable tools. She remembered the fear in their faces, the way no one dared speak. Her first act of rebellion had been small, just a single message smuggled out to the resistance. But one act had grown into many, until she stood here, chained beneath a mountain, facing death. A scraping sound pulled her back to the present. She looked up. The midnight blue dragon had returned. This time, it did not stay at the edge of the shadows. It slithered closer, coils gliding effortlessly over stone, until its head lowered to her level, just beyond the barrier. Mara's heart pounded, but she did not retreat. Instead, she rose to her feet, standing eye to eye with the beast. "I'm not your enemy," she said softly. "If you are as wise as I think, then you know the Emperor is not your master. He is your jailer." The dragon's pupils widened, golden light shimmering in its eyes. A low sound rumbled from its chest, deep and melodic, vibrating through the stone floor and into Mara's bones. It was not the growl of hunger. It was something closer to a song, an echo of a voice too old for words. Mara pressed her palms against the barrier. "Help me, and I will help you." As if in answer, the dragon lowered its head and remained there, unmoving, as though in silent agreement. Far above, nobles and guards slept in the comfort of their chambers, certain that the prisoner in the pits would not see the sunrise. But under the mountain, another story was already unfolding. The dragons watched her, not as prey, but as something different. Something the Empire had not foreseen. Mara sank back to the floor, her eyes never leaving the golden gaze that lingered on her. She whispered a vow to herself, her words meant for the dragon as much as for her own heart. "Tomorrow, when they come for me, I will not be alone." The cavern returned to stillness, but the silence was no longer empty. It carried the weight of a secret waiting to break free. The mountain held its breath, the dragons stirred in their slumber, and echoes of an ancient bond whispered through the dark. The first rays of dawn never reached the dragon pits. Instead, the light came from the bioluminescent fungi, brightening with the turning of the hour. Guards marched in with ceremonial armor, their weapons gleaming. The heavy doors creaked open, and Mara was pulled from her cell, chains dragged against the stone as she was led to the central platform above the pit. Emperor Kaldros was already waiting. His robes shimmered brighter than the crystals hanging from the ceiling. Beside him stood nobles eager to see the spectacle. Kaldros raised his hand and declared, "Let this prisoner's end remind all who resist. She is food for my dragons." Mara was shoved forward onto the platform suspended over the pit. The force field that had kept her safe flickered and vanished. Slowly the platform lowered. Every rumble of the machinery echoed like a drumbeat of doom. Below, 5 dragons stirred, their massive bodies uncoiling, eyes glowing like molten suns. The crowd above expected screams, but Mara stood calm. As the platform reached the ground, the dragons circled her, their scales rippling with light. The midnight blue dragon moved first, lowering its head close enough for Mara to feel the heat of its breath. The others followed, their movements deliberate, forming a protective ring around her. Gasps erupted from the nobles. Kaldros shouted in fury, "What trickery is this?" But no trick had been made. The dragons had chosen. The midnight blue dragon gave a resonant call, deep and powerful, then turned and slipped into a tunnel at the edge of the pit. After a moment, it returned, carrying something in its massive jaws. Gently, it placed a metallic object at Mara's feet. It was a key, etched with glowing symbols that pulsed with inner light. Mara picked it up, her heart racing. The dragon nudged her toward the tunnel. She hesitated, then whispered, "You want me to follow?" The Emperor's voice thundered from above, "Stay where you are." But the dragons moved as one, their colossal forms rising to block his view. With their protection, Mara stepped into the tunnel, clutching the key. The air grew warmer as she followed the midnight blue dragon. Glowing carvings lined the tunnel walls, depicting dragons and humans standing side by side, building cities under twin suns. She touched one carving, whispering, "You remember this, don't you?" The dragon gave a low hum, almost like agreement. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber shaped like a dome. At its center stood a pedestal with a keyhole glowing faintly. Mara placed the key inside and turned it. the floor lit with veins of blue light, spreading outward like rivers until the entire dome glowed. The ceiling shimmered, and what looked like solid stone dissolved into a projection of the stars. Then, the chamber spoke in a voice neither male nor female, yet perfectly clear. Activation complete. Genetic signature confirmed. Welcome, kindred. Mara staggered at the words. The midnight blue dragon lowered its head, touching its snout gently to her shoulder. A flood of visions filled her mind. Images of humans and dragons working as allies, traveling among the stars, building wonders. Then came destruction, the arrival of the Emperor's ancestors, and the fall of the Alliance. As the visions faded, Mara gasped for air. The chamber shifted. Hidden panels slid open, revealing devices shaped like bracelets, discs, and tools that pulsed with energy. One bracelet leapt gently into her hand, tightening around her wrist. A warm surge flowed through her, and suddenly she heard a voice inside her thoughts. Finally, we can speak, the dragon said. Mara nearly dropped the bracelet. You're in my head? My name is Cerathis, the dragon explained. I am guardian of this chamber. We have waited generations for someone like you. Mara's eyes widened as she turned to look at the dragon. You've been pretending all this time, pretending to be beasts. Yes, Cerathis replied, to survive. The Empire believed us broken, but we waited for the return of the kindred. Before Mara could answer, the chamber shook with distant explosions. Echoes of shouting drifted down the tunnels. The Emperor's guards were coming. Cerathis's voice grew urgent. We must leave now. There is more to show you. Panels in the floor parted, revealing a hidden. Mara followed Cerathis down a glowing corridor until they entered a cavern so massive it felt endless. There, resting at its heart, was a ship unlike any Mara had ever seen. Its surface glowed faintly as though woven from strands of light itself. The hull curved like scales, shimmering in flowing patterns. No seams, no rivets, no harsh angles, only living brilliance that seemed to breathe with the mountain around it. Mara whispered, her voice trembling, "It's alive." Cerathis answered in her mind, "The Starborn vessel, the last of the Alliance fleet, grown from light and memory. It has waited for you." Mara stepped forward, awe in her eyes, as the ship pulsed with recognition, responding to her presence. She placed her hand against its glowing surface, and the vessel stirred awake, humming with power. Above them, the Emperor's rage grew louder, his soldiers closing in. But under the mountain, in the glow of the ancient ship, a new future had already begun. The cavern trembled as the Emperor's guards stormed through the tunnels, their boots pounding like drums of war. Blasts from energy rifles echoed, sparks scattering against stone. Yet within the great chamber, the Starborn vessel awakened fully, its radiant hull glowing brighter with each passing second. Mara stood before it, her heart racing, the ancient bracelet pulsing on her wrist. Cerathis, the midnight blue dragon, coiled beside her. His golden eyes burned with determination. The Emperor is close, his voice echoed in her thoughts. We must rise now, or all will be lost. Mara placed both hands on the living ship. Light surged outward, flowing across its surface until the cavern shimmered like dawn breaking underground. The vessel responded to her presence as though it had been waiting for her all along. Panels opened, revealing a ramp formed of luminous strands. Inside, Cerathis urged. The ship knows you. It will obey. Mara stepped forward, her feet touching the glowing ramp. As she entered, the interior reshaped itself to fit her form. Walls pulsed with soft light, and a central console rose smoothly from the floor. Cerathis followed, his massive body sliding through the opening with ease as the ship expanded around him, adapting to dragon and human alike. Alarms sounded outside. Soldiers rushed into the cavern, their weapons raised. Emperor Caldros himself stepped forward, his robes glittering like shards of ice. Rage distorted his face as he shouted, "That vessel belongs to me. Destroy them both before they escape." Blasts of energy struck the ship's glowing hull, but the beams scattered harmlessly across its surface. The starborn vessel hummed in response, shields awakening with effortless power. Mara gripped the console. Through the neural link, knowledge flowed into her mind. Navigation, defense, and the heart of the ship's purpose. "Guide it," Cerathis whispered in her thoughts. "It will follow your will." Mara focused. The ship lifted from the ground, rising with a low, resonant hum that filled the chamber. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the vessel hovered above the soldiers. Caldros raised his weapon, firing blast after blast, but none pierced the shields. The Emperor's voice rang out, desperate and furious. "You cannot run forever, human. My empire stretches across the stars. You are nothing." Mara's voice was calm, carried by the ship itself. "I am not nothing. I am the signal of dawn." With that, the ship tilted upward. Its hull rippled with energy as hidden engines flared to life. The cavern ceiling opened, stone dissolving under a beam of light that carved a path to the surface. In moments, the vessel burst into the sky, leaving Caldros and his soldiers staring helplessly from below. Above ground, the city still slept, unaware of the storm gathering in its heart. As the vessel climbed higher, other dragons emerged from the tunnels, their massive wings of light unfurling as if answering a call. They followed the starborn ship, a living fleet rising against the darkness. Mara stood at the console, breathless. The stars stretched before her, vast and endless. The ship's systems thrummed with readiness, waiting for her command. She felt Cerathis beside her, his presence steady and unyielding. "What now?" she whispered. "Now," Cerathis replied, "you awaken the rest." Mara touched the console, and streams of light radiated outward, spreading across the heavens like ripples in water. It was not just a signal of flight. It was a call, an ancient message encoded in the vessel itself. Across hidden worlds and forgotten strongholds, other dragons stirred. Caches of knowledge and ships like this one answered, glowing in the dark like stars long asleep. In the Emperor's palace, Caldros felt the shift. His silver eyes widened as reports poured in. Dragons refusing commands. Ancient sites coming alive. Energy signatures lighting up across the empire. "Impossible," he whispered, though fear trembled behind his rage. "She has awakened them." But Mara did not hear his denial. High above, the starborn vessel pierced the clouds, its light spreading across the horizon. The sun rose behind it, golden rays mingling with the ship's glow, until sky and vessel became one. Mara looked out at the dawn, her voice soft but resolute. "This is not the end. This is the beginning." And as the ship carried her and the dragons toward the unknown, the Empire shuddered on its throne of fear, for the signal of dawn had been lit, and nothing could silence it now.